Good morning, part 6. My intention was only to talk in a 4-part series on what I did to reinvent the public school system in the United States. It was back in 2013. At the time, I had been writing several guest commentaries in the little town called Key Biscayne. We incorporated in 1991. I've been living here since 1975. I'm here today in a city park. Same city park, same bench, same background. And as I do the videos, I'm doing it really for selfish reasons. It's been a long time since I established the legal precedent for direct ballot parent trigger law. The law is, as I stated several times in the other videos, is Florida Parent Empowerment Law 1002-33, Clause 3B. I used 3B, which many call the parent trigger. Parent trigger is when two parents or an ESAC member made up of parents and teachers, or a teacher and a parent, sign a letter together saying they want an intra-school vote, an election between parents and teachers who unfortunately vote separately in 2 ballot boxes. I want to remove the second ballot box. That's the ballot box where the teachers' union votes. Obviously, they're conditioned to vote against parents taking over the finances, the financial condition of the school, the physical budget of the school. There lies the key to the failure of the public school system. Many people think it's teachers, poor students, parents that are not raising their kids correctly, parents not really interested in their kids' education, helicopter parents. Never is the finance of how the finances of a school impact the ability to teach. When you don't handle the finances, yet you pay for 50% of your real estate taxes to a school district that funds the school system. Every single piece of real estate, whether you have children in public school or not, pays these taxes. This is the biggest and downright flaw of the American public school system. The nation is too large for us to believe that a government who fails at everything else they do, government is not good at anything. Even in the military, government doesn't have competition. Therefore, it's a monopoly power. Government is a monopolistic power. So what makes you think that they're going to properly educate as many children as possible? If you lower that standard to just 5%, yeah, perhaps 5% of the public school student body gets educated and has a skill set to move on to sustain a family. You can't really hide the fact that the public school education system fails the majority of students. It was able to be hidden throughout the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, when you used to be able to sustain a nuclear family of 3 or more children on the assembly line and auto factories, as the combustion engine became the epicenter of all technology in the United States. But now that has changed. My God, people don't even want a combustion engine anymore. How quickly that all changed. Now, to sustain yourself, you need to be a computer whiz. And if you don't make a living shortly, a robot will replace you. And that's just in one generation. One generation. My generation. And government has done everything in its power. Everything in its power to write laws and set policy by those who get elected by the majority to completely undermine a nuclear family's ability to stay together, raise a family, and remain in the middle class. You can blame a lot of issues. Believe me, if I had an hour, I would delve into a bunch of issues. But the only issue that sets it apart from others is education. One of the most cowardly things ordinary people do is shut their eyes to the facts. That was a quote from C.S. Lewis, who at one time doubted God's existence. Went on to be one of the great Christian orators today. I've been to his live acts, of course, not him personally, but ordinary people denying themselves facts. The most ordinary of which are those who sustain and vote accordingly to maintain the public school system. I've had people who are very impassioned about the public school system. And they tell me, well, wouldn't parent triggers bankrupt the public school system? And I reply, isn't the public school system already bankrupt? Hello? Look at the graduation rates. Look how many people graduate and can't read. I mean, aren't there facts about the public school system in so many districts? I'm thinking of Baltimore County.
Local Fox affiliate, there are 23 schools in Baltimore where not a single student is proficient in math. 0 students can do math. And that doesn't count the other schools where only 1 or 2 kids make the grade. That's 2,000 kids. Not a single one of them can do math. Parents are furious.
He can't read. He's in the 4th grade. How is he supposed to be productive if he can't read? They go there to get babysit for 8 hours and come home. I can't afford no $1,000 tutor from Sylvan, but that's what he needs.
And our kids are not caught up, but we're passing them. We're passing them, but they can't read.
Terrible. Horrible. Did the money go to laptops? Nope. It went to school district bureaucrats, principals, administrators, superintendents. You know, the people are basically making hundreds of thousands of dollars and they don't even teach. They stole the COVID money too. Do you think the politicians should be angry? I do. But no. The politicians are angry at Fox for reporting it.
I sent you an email about the 23 schools in Baltimore City who have 0 students who are proficient in math.
Do a school story about something succeeding in the schools, I'll respond. You never do. So,
who do you hold accountable for the failure?
Your bosses with a distorted coverage you provided.
Well, the data came from Baltimore City Public Schools. Jesse, yeah, that's Delegate Sandy Rosenberg. He's represented this area for quite some time, very well known in the community. And that reaction was a bit surprising to me, but not totally unexpected given the fact that we have sent the delegation who represents Baltimore City in Annapolis numerous emails, not just this time, but for weeks and weeks, about several failures within Baltimore City Public Schools, and really hardly any delegate, state senator really ever responds to us. So when we had the opportunity to catch up with some of them in the halls in Annapolis, where the state capitol is, we took that opportunity to ask them in person, and then you saw their response really bucking any sort of responsibility or accountability for what's going on in their home district.
Do they know that the teachers are paying themselves $350,000, $400,000, and no one can do math in Baltimore? Do they know that they're taking COVID money and padding their salaries with it?
They should know. I mean, a lot of this funding gets approved by the same lawmakers who you're seeing right there on the steps in Annapolis. The school district gets their budget, approved by the state as well as the city council members. And city council members, really very few of them are talking about this. Most of them are just saying that, this is what happens when we come out of a pandemic. We often hear as well that Public Schools is historically underfunded, but we know that they have one of the largest school district budgets across the country, spending one of the most highest per pupil when you look at the math. And there's more money coming given what the lawmakers did. And this is something that we've seen fail in the past when lawmakers decide they just want to dump thousands and hundreds of millions of dollars into school districts without any sort of accountability measures in place.
Approach, look at education. We didn't just tinker with the system. We're flipping it on its head and making major investment into the education and the success of our kids. A lot of the focus has certainly been on the education freedom accounts that allow parents and students to have more power about where and how they're educated, but that's only a part of the puzzle. We're also going from the very bottom in the country, number 48th in the country in teacher pay, to the top 5 by the start of the school year.
Scores drop. We're still above average compared to the rest of the country, but we want to help fund through the state, across the state, charter schools, public schools, every school, after school math tutoring for kids who need it. Look, there's great examples of choice and innovation in our state where about 15.5% of our kids go to charter schools. But just like any model, there's good charter schools, there's charter schools that don't perform as well. There's good district-run schools, there's district-run schools that don't perform as well. But
I think there are a whole bunch of contributing factors, but when you think of it, misplacing, 250,000 kids, the public school system, especially in our big cities, is broken. It does not serve these kids. We see from the other pandemic-related information, a lot of kids not only were behind, but a lot are behind in a way that they'll never catch up. And it's just a sign of the apathy. Look at the test scores that came out that show there's 22 schools in Baltimore where there's not a single kid proficient in math. We're not preparing these kids. These kids are destined to end up on the fringes of the American dream and not have a living and a future that they should.
And the adults never considered or didn't care what it would do to our kids, like their mental health. That same CDC report we mentioned says that 1/3 of U.S. teen girls seriously considered attempting suicide in 2021. 1/3 of American teen girls. Meanwhile, the head of the teachers union, Randy Whiteguard, admitted this week that she advised the CDC on the science of school closures. Suggested ideas is what she said it was. The parents lost control, and that's something parents may never get back.
And yes, okay, I'm pushing the book. But the book only has one chapter about reinventing the public school system. The remainder of the book is about reinventing the country as a whole. It's called The Fiscals. The Fiscals, reinventing the United States by affect, not effect. Doing so, I came up with a word that I later submitted in the Urban Dictionary called the progressive virus. For me, it wasn't a biological virus, it was a computer virus that embedded in the hard drives of the average liberal or statist. A lot of liberals are statists and they don't know it. Believers of government. I believe the government should be imaginary in our lives. I'm a child of Cuban immigrants who fled communism. There's nothing really appealing to me about government. The only thing that I find appealing about government is when things have gotten already out of control and then you're calling out a cop and you're hoping to God he catches the villain before you do. But at the same time, I'm also more likely to administer justice myself if I do catch the criminal without real concern of courts and what would happen to me. But going back to my word, progressive virus, it's probably the greatest run-on sentence in the history of Urban Dictionary, and hopefully it gets in the Webster Dictionary one day.
Moms and dads saying we've had it with the woke curriculum.
Amid concerns over lesson plans, spending priorities, and campus violence, House Republicans are proposing what they call the Parents' Bill of Rights, meant to give parents more insight into what happens inside public school classrooms.
Consider H.R. 5.
On Capitol Hill today, Republicans and Democrats clashed in a hearing.
I've heard some of my colleagues say that this is not about banning books, but give me a break. Look what's happening in this country. Republican-led legislatures are going on a censorship spree that would make the Chinese Communist Party blush.
A separate interim report Republicans released earlier blames Democrats for hostilities between parents and teachers.
I think it could be a hot button issue if the Democrats continue to jam their policies like this down American
administration of colluding with the National School Board Association to use law enforcement and counterterrorism resources against parents in 2021. That same year, Attorney General Merrick Garland outlined alleged threats of violence against school board members amid protests about school policies. Democrats are proposing a countermeasure. They say their alternative fosters collaboration between parents and their children's educators. They insist GOP attacks on public schools make them a less welcoming place for Black students and other students of color, students with disabilities, and LGBTQI+ students. There are multiple House proposals targeting how public schools are run, circulating on Capitol Hill right now. Most of them are destined for the ash heap of history.
Republicans in the House of Representatives are pushing a bill they say will increase transparency in the classroom, but Democrats argue it pits parents against teachers. The so-called Parents' Bill of Rights Act prompting a fiery debate on the House floor. Marianne Rafferty shows us tonight. Marianne, good evening.
Good evening, Trace. And every parent is concerned about what's going on in their schools. School board meetings across the nation are prompting Republicans to back those parents up on the House floor.
After COVID, the veil has been lifted on a corrupted education system that has for too long been indoctrinating our children.
Rosa Parks. This apparently is too woke by the Republican Party. Song of Solomon is unacceptable to Republican politics. I can say what my progressive value is, and that is freedom over fascism.
Republicans say public education veered to the left.
No one is arguing that parents should dictate what is being taught, but parents should be able to see their school's curriculum.
We know they definitively have tried to ban a book about baseball, about Roberto Clemente, the first Latino baseball player to make it into the Hall of Fame. Why do they want to ban a book about Roberto Clemente?
To paraphrase a gospel truth from the book of Matthew, woe to anyone who causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble.
Then we'd be done, wouldn't we? But no. Go back to government. Government's your problem. Most of the most important decisions in our life happen in our absence. And that desire to seek happiness is really about widening its path and living and laughing and reproducing. You've got to reproduce often and a lot. We need bigger and bigger nuclear families in the Western world. Even the Chinese in the Eastern world realized their one-child policy was eviscerating their societies. Only communists talk about overpopulation. Only socialists talk about overpopulation. The rest of us sit there and shut our eyes to facts. The fact is that the American people who suffer from the progressive virus in vast majorities have failed at voting, have failed at the ballot box, and in doing so have agreed to be governed by our lessers. That's a fact. When you see narratives being articulated in a manner in which makes absolutely no sense and is counterintuitive to society as a whole, you know you're being governed by lessers. For instance, Florida passed Parental Bill of Rights recently. To no avail. It will do absolutely nothing to improve the rights of parents, because it requires a lot of money to go to court to defend those rights. Listing them is no different than listing our Bill of Rights in our Constitution. You still got to go and defend them. How many illegal search and seizures are there? How much censorship of the press has there been? Did the government not shut down churches during COVID? I thought you could not pass any law, regulation to limit the expression of our faith. And yet, during COVID, churches, temples, synagogues were shut down. Nothing became of any of these things, yet we had a Bill of Rights. Well, now, because of Florida's statewide Parent Bill of Rights, there goes the federal government wanting to do the same. Congress wants to pass a federal Parents Bill of Rights. Wait a minute, weren't we trying to get rid of the Department of Education at the federal level? I pointed that out in the previous videos. So you're encouraging the federal government to now have a national Bill of Rights? The only thing that should be national is a concealed carry permit. An American citizen should be able to carry his gun in all 50 states, in all the cities. He should be free to travel knowing that he is protecting himself, because, again, government cannot protect him. I think it's pretty obvious with the crime-ridden streets that we have today, with the massive shoplifting in mobs, all brought on by social media, where thousands of people agree that the only way to make it in life is to shoplift. I mean, shoplifting has been around for a long time. It's as old as capitalism. But when you have no skills, and you haven't been educated, and you find yourself in the swarms of millions, hundreds of thousands, hundreds, who don't have any skills either, you can see how you all just want to shoplift. This is what's become of America. We're regressing. Emotional bankruptcy is just an explanation for the obvious. One of the most cowardly things ordinary people do is shut their eyes to the facts.